Okay, a few years ago, this is kind of an interesting story. In San Diego, there was a radio station that had a Super Bowl giveaway contest where they gave away 2 tickets on the 50-yard line to the Super Bowl that was being held here in San Diego at Qualcomm Stadium. I think the game was between Green Bay and Denver. If you've ever been to a Super Bowl, I mean, it's just an incredible experience. And this one guy apparently won the contest, and he won 2 seats. He was ecstatic. I mean, it was kind of a cool thing to win. And he took his best buddy to the game and, did all the events and participated in everything and sat down there on the 50-yard line seats. And they were just incredible. And the whole stadium of 70,000 people is packed. And they were jumping up and down. They were really excited. I mean, let alone the fact that the tickets were for free and they're at the Super Bowl. And they're kind of younger guys and talking about it and drinking some beers. And they're basically just starting the game. And the stadium is packed. I mean, there isn't an empty seat, except for one of the guys notices that the seat next to him is empty. And on the other side of the empty seat, there's this kind of older guy sitting there, and he doesn't appear to be with anybody else, but he's kind of watching the game, and the game just started, and the kickoff's done, and all the festivities. And the 2 guys that won the contest basically are getting into it, and they look around about, first quarter or so ends, and they look around, and the seat next to them is still empty. And the old guy on the other side of the empty seat, he's cheering away and into the game and everything. One guy who won the contest says to the other guy, his buddy, he says, gee, I wonder why there's an empty seat. I mean, there isn't an empty seat in the whole house, and it's the Super Bowl, and this is the 50-yard line. So I wonder what the deal's with that. And the guy said, well, it must be maybe someone's, coming in late, or maybe they're going to the restroom or getting some hot dogs for a quarter or something like that. It didn't seem to make sense, but they kind of blew it off. And the second quarter comes along, and that seat's still empty. And the 2 guys that won the tickets are talking to each other saying, we got to ask, that's just amazing how you'd have an empty seat on the 50-yard line for the Super Bowl. So, it's a little bit odd, but the guy turned over, the guy that won the ticket turned over to the guy that was sitting there, the old guy. He kind of reached across the empty seat and said, the old guy says, hey, don't mean to, be rude or anything, but just wanted to know, we're at the Super Bowl and on the 50-yard line, and we're all enjoying the game, and there's kind of not an empty seat in the house except for this one. And the old guy says, well, to be honest, this is the 20th year where my wife and I had tickets to go to the Super Bowl. And the old guy, he must have been in his 70s, was starting to, explain the fact that for 20 years, he and his wife, as a tradition, no matter where the Super Bowl was and no matter who was playing, he would always get tickets well in advance, and he'd get 2 tickets always on the 50-yard line. And his wife and he would go every single year and make a big event out of it, kind of celebrate their anniversary, and it would be a big thing they could do together. And he indicated, that this year his wife had passed away. So it was pretty sad. The guy kind of felt awkward even asking about it, and so he kind of pulled away and said, we just want to know why, and I feel sorry for your loss and all that type of thing. And apparently the husband had continued on the tradition. So that was kind of cool. But the guys were a little bit embarrassed, and the guys that won the contest were talking to each other about it. And third quarter comes along, and they just couldn't help but ask, why wouldn't he at least bring a friend or a relative to the game? I know it's a tradition, and it was something he celebrated with his wife, but, it is the Super Bowl on the 50-yard line, and maybe he could kind of continue the tradition with a family member or a friend or something. So they just had to ask. They couldn't wait anymore. So next thing you know, the guy that won the tickets leans over the empty seat to the old guy again and says, we're just curious, and please feel free to not answer, or let us know if we're being inappropriate, but we have to ask, why is it that you wouldn't bring, a close friend or a relative to fill this empty seat? It is a Super Bowl, and it's your kind of 20th year gig. And the guy responded, well, they're all at the funeral.